So in the 4 years, yes, we have shifted significantly. As I came in, I was the first procurement person. There was no guardrails. Everyone could just onboard a vendor and buy.
There's always this period of uncertainty with procurement because, it's one of those functions that everyone knows is ripe for consolidation. But also at the same time, you have the best knowledge of the tech stack and what's a sacred cow.
When they were seeing that I was implementing processes with my manager and developing all of these efficiencies and then doing end-to-end procurement with white glove treatment where you as a stakeholder didn't have to engage unless I needed you to speak to a vendor on the technical aspects of what you needed or changes on the contract, etc., relating to just the technical piece. I managed the rest. They were happy. They didn't have to do anything else. We had an agent built on an LLM that provided contract review. The output was, yes, it's missing the ink. Yes, the address is wrong. Yes, it does not have the terms you're seeking. And all these elementary details, commercial details. So what it would take me reviewing X amount of contracts or order forms, it was instant. Tokens are expensive. And you have engineers that are developing things for your company. They're going to consume those tokens faster than most. What I'm seeing from the LLMs is in some cases, they are changing their plan structure.
I've seen in some of our customers where the standard around what it takes to now buy something new with an ROI justification, even in the last couple of months, has shifted because
non-ROI. And now it's ROI too, right?
Well, yeah, right. Because before it was like, it's an AI thing.
All right, well, we are here in Brooklyn at the Black Mountain Wine House. Is that right? Shout out to Brooklyn. Justin's from Brooklyn, by the way. He's got a lot of pride for Brooklyn. And tomorrow kicks off DPW, which one of the bigger procurement events in the world and certainly growing. And there's a lot of excitement about that. And we're joined today by Isa Rivera from, she manages IT procurement at Coursera. Awesome. Well, let's jump into your story a little bit. So you've kind of moved around a few industries a little bit. You just went through an acquisition, which we'll get into a little bit. And now you're like the rest of us figuring out this world of AI. But, as we dig into your story, procurement, something you fell into, and maybe like what made you stay?
So I started early on and I didn't know it was procurement. It wasn't called procurement.
Okay.
That was the interesting part. And I went into sales and circled back. I did a career change. I went from sales and I said, what do I want to do? And the one thing that always attracted me about procurement was the diversity in the day.
Huh.
You could be negotiating, you could be talking to a vendor, stakeholder, requirements.
Yep.
And it's not a day-to-day same old type of job or tactical all the time. There could be fires to put out.
So you didn't want to be bored?
No, exactly. Dynamic.
Okay.
I wanted my job to be dynamic. And I went back and I went to Citrix and I did P2P on contracts for them for a little bit and went to ECI Telecom and subsequently BT and T-Mobile, where I did technology procurement, fiber optics primarily.
Okay.
And at Coursera, I am focused on IT, SaaS stack.
And you sit within IT. You don't report through IT. You don't, or finance, etc. Yeah, and you seem to like that.
I love it. It makes a difference in the world. It's very innovative, a lot of efficiencies, and so we're used to reporting under finance primarily, or maybe if a company has a CPU organization, it's completely different. It's a game changer.
Do you feel like a lot of people understand what it is truly that you do from a procurement point of view?
Usually people don't. When they ask me what I do, I say, I do procurement. I don't even mention IT because they may think, oh, you're an IT person. No. And so majority of the people, as we all know in procurement, will say, what is that? So the easier way to explain it to somebody has been, I buy products and I negotiate contracts.
Okay.
That's a simplistic way of telling anyone what I do.
How do you feel about the definition, Justin?
I think that's right. I think that I think it might be selling yourself a little short in terms of, all of the complexity of stakeholder management and, all of the like relationship side, which is what I always find to be fascinating about the role of procurement is, maintaining relationships of your stakeholders internally, but also the relationships of your stakeholders externally and the people that you need to satisfy on both ends of the spectrum. And I find that it's a hard balance to strike. Everyone's going to be either a little upset, maybe a little happy, but never, 100% satisfied or happy about every outcome.
And everything is urgent.
Yeah, and then there's always that balance of how much do I explain it? Is it worth it anyway? But it maybe brings up a more important question of, do you feel like your key stakeholders understand or question the strategic value that you bring to the organization?
Initially, when you start a corporation, they don't know you. So you have to build that rapport, that trust for them to know that they could truly rely on you. And at Coursera, it took a few months and the rest is history. I'm at the company for 4 years now, operating and running all of the IT tech stack for the group of technology, product, CIO, and data. And so it grew from being only IT and then eventually engineering to a broader team.
So go ahead.
Do you remember like a breakthrough moment with one of your stakeholders where it was like, yes, I've earned my trust. Like we are now off to the races?
Yes, it was when the senior director of engineering said, this is my tech stack for infra. I want her to negotiate and remove all this burden from my team of doing the vendor management, the negotiations, the renewals, and all these other, plus the tactical portion, right? The creating the POs and submitting the workflows and all those other details. No one wants to bother with those, right? So that piece was where he realized she did good with this contract. I wanted to see that on all the other contracts.
So you got a quick win. It sounds like it's 3 months. I would say that's pretty quick.
3 to 4 months.
A year to earn credibility.
No, I was the first procurement person at Coursera across the company, and a month in they hired someone out under finance, but my focus was all the contracts for the IT team. And so it just built from there. And when they were seeing that I was implementing processes with my manager and developing all of these efficiencies and then doing end-to-end procurement with white glove treatment where you as a stakeholder didn't have to engage unless I needed you to speak to a vendor on the technical aspects of what you needed or changes on the contract, etc., relating to just the technical piece. I managed the rest. They were happy. They didn't have to do anything else. Exactly. To this day, I have executives that come directly to me. We have channels for the whole team and emails for the whole team. And this week, one of them said, I will always come to you. And so I appreciate it, but it also, they're entrusting you with handling everything and not consuming their time with nuances so they could actually focus on day-to-day business, which is the key for the engineering team.
I feel like there's be careful what you wish for in that moment of like, okay, we really trust procurement to help us out. And now you're drowning in all of the work that others are entrusting you to take on.
With that drowning comes new resources.
Sure.
So we grew the team. We hired someone else, junior, that has learned in a year and a half, all of what I've done and learning the contracts and taking training for the contracts to bring him up to scale. Yeah. And that's amazing, for us to be able to do that and share that knowledge with him as well.
Yeah, I do know that people, especially in this market, are struggling to get some of those resources. And so, one thing we talk a lot about Tropic is how do we do more with less, but maybe other types of resources. And of course, we're big about supplier intelligence and benchmarking, things like that, which help us move faster. But I do recall that having a similar situation, stood up a procurement function, got some early wins, started to see some of that more demand, went to ask for a resource, and the answer was no. But then luckily the CTO was like, I need more support. And I said, well, I need more headcount. And it was the CTO going to the CFO saying, we need this headcount, that finally kind of unlocked that. I want to double click though on one thing that you said is it doesn't sound like you're gating what you work on. It sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but part of the value proposition is savings, sure, but also taking that off of the plate. Did I hear that correctly or no?
Correct. So yes, the focus is always savings,
Okay.
as with any procurement organization. But in my model, we focus also on taking on all of the end-to-end procurement, white glove treatment for our teams.
So it doesn't matter size, contract.
Nope.
Yeah.
We do POCs or proof of value, zero value, up to multimillion. So it does not matter. We manage all the spend.
Has the rate of change? Well, first you went through an acquisition. You acquired a company, Udemy. Is that right? Udemy? Is that how you say it right?
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about that, but maybe while you're talking about that, so that typically brings in new volume, new projects. There's consolidation. There's
And like also like new culture too, because you obviously earned a lot of the credibility as part of the Coursera work, but now there's a new team that may feel completely different about the role of procurement. So
that they have their own processes and it's trying to migrate and merge where it's a cohesive for both of the teams. And of course, always trying to find the best way for everyone and the company at the end of the day to work with the new teams and then see where we could do improvements and of course collaborate on the systems because they may use a different system than we do. Or the same thing with the merger with Sprint and T-Mobile. I was there for the telecom portion and it was the same thing, consolidation of the fiber lines. And so it still goes back to let's evaluate the contracts. What are the terms? Where our priorities are? Are we going to be able to migrate now? We need to wait and migrate later and those kinds of things. And so it's not just relies on procurement. It relies also heavily on the business because they know how the tools are connected. In my case, it's SaaS stack. So we have to rely on them to do a holistic evaluation of everything, not just from Coursera, not just from Udemy side. And then we come in with the contract and present the options. And they're running with the decisions because they know best. They know the tools and integrations and everything that is required to migrate those tools. Same thing at T-Mobile and Sprint.
it's interesting, Justin, when she was talking, it made me think about a lot of the M&A activity we're seeing in the ProcureTech space. And I think that that's not specific to, the space we play in. I think we're going to see that trend happening really across SaaS quite a bit. So if you, had a recommendation for another procurement person who was, going through that acquisition merging process, what's a hint or suggestion or two that you would recommend for them to have success in that? Because that can be a hairy world.
So if you're invited to the table to participate in the pre-merger, honor the NDAs.
start with the basics. Yeah, under the NDAs.
Please, very important, and transparency and follow the rules your teams provide you around that. Beyond the elementary piece of the pre-merger, once teams connect and start getting acquainted, build a relationship. Before you start diving into the work, try to connect and get to know each other. See what your likes are, what you have in common, because the road ahead is going to be hard and it's going to be a lot of work and there's going to be clashes. It always happens, but when you're merging, there's also uncertainty and there's a lot of questions about process. Even just from the time that a merger is announced or an acquisition, it's always the same. It doesn't matter what company or how big or small the company is. So I would recommend to teams to take a step back, let things go, and just wait for direction, wait for your management to communicate what's next. And process, it will take time to implement and to be able to achieve the goal, because at the end of the day, everybody has the same goal.
Yeah.
We see a lot, like a lot of our customers are going either through mergers, have been acquiring. And I think there's always this period of uncertainty with procurement because, it's one of those functions that everyone knows is ripe for consolidation. But also at the same time, you have the best knowledge of the tech stack and, what's a sacred cow and what's critical and trying to navigate that tension between what's my future look like at this organization while also playing such a critical role in helping navigate the transition. I can only imagine it's like a really interesting headspace to be in for that period of time.
So I've been through reorganizations at British Telecom and a couple other companies. So I already have that sensitivity to say, it's going to happen one way or another, whether I do it on my terms or not. That's really the question.
Right.
So it depends on an individual's tolerance of, are they willing to wait and see what happens? Or are they going to put the best foot forward and complete the task at hand to demonstrate their value?
Sure.
And at the end of the day, at any company, doesn't matter what role you're in, what's important is you demonstrating that value continuously and growing. If you don't grow and you stay in a position, you could move laterally because it's improving your value added knowledge and experience and so on. But a lot of people feel that, oh no, I don't want to wait, or I have a mortgage, or whatever the case may be, right? And so they may actually say, no, I resign. I went somewhere else, right? It is a lot of work. Doesn't matter how late you come into a role in a merger, acquisition, or a reorg, it is going to be a lot of work and a lot of unknowns. And so people that have a little bit more tolerance about working with ambiguity,
That's it.
Yeah. They're going to survive their whole process. Now, whether they'll keep them or not, that's a different story.
Yeah. No, I see a lot of I can understand why there's a tendency towards cynicism in those moments of just procurement always gets the axe, as part of a merger, and that clouding the kind of the opportunity that can present in terms of new learnings, new relationships, new responsibilities. But I do think it definitely takes a certain perspective around and comfort with ambiguity to be able to kind of power through that.
Definitely. Yes.
So the M&A piece is important. Shifting gears to something that also I think is a little hairy and takes time, but it's this whole world of AI. Do you think? Seriously?
Do you think the value proposition of procurement has evolved from where it was a couple of years ago to where it is today?
It remains, but it has changed a little bit. It just really depends on the organization and how they use AI and what they use it for. In the case of procurement, my company, we use it. We use all the LLMs. Okay. We are very proponent of teaching our employees to use it, right? In the case of tools within procurement that we use, whether it's Tropics or anyone else's that has built-in AI, there are some tools that could be leveraged to improve our efficiencies and make our day-to-day better through automation and things like that. It is up to us to overcome our internal restrictions or lack of knowledge on how to best use it personally, and also when you have challenges within the company to approve such tools. I still find that there's a large volume of procurement people out there that their corporations are not using it. When I've gone to previous procurement conferences, this is my first one for DPW, with the DPW. I've been to Gartner's and a few other ones. I found that over time, there has been an increase of procurement staff using it. But I don't see half of the room saying, I am. I am using orchestration. I'm creating an agent. Yeah. I had the opportunity to work with an AI manager specialist within IT group. I love working for IT. And he's proposed something to someone about making an efficiency in contract order review and submissions. There was always the same things over and over: the entity, the address, all the basic. And so I was the first review on the contract, and I said, I'll take you up on that. We spent an hour and a half to almost 2 hours on a Friday, improvise, and he helped me do the prompting. And he would ask me questions, and I told him, these are the issues. We tested it, voila. We had an agent built on an LLM that provided contract review. The output was, yes, it's missing the ink. Yes, the address is wrong. Yes, it does not have the terms you're seeking. And all these elementary details, commercial details. So what it would take me reviewing X amount of contracts or order forms, it was instant. It saves so much time. And so those kind of efficiencies is what I find that our procurement teams across are not tapping into. That are simple agents that could be built for them to get that quick move and turn around, because the LLM would spit out, based on what we provided on that output, a letter that I literally copy and pasted with a click and send it to the vendor, correct all of this.
I love the person you described, the AI evangelist in the IT department. I'm seeing that role become so valuable in terms of this, AI functionality expert that can then, tag into different, teams and departments to figure out what's your biggest problem? Let's go build an agent to solve for it. Yes. And it's happening everywhere. Across our customers, I know everyone is thinking about the agents they can be building within procurement, which is great because, no offense to anyone out there, but procurement isn't often known as the most forward-thinking function from a technology adoption and an innovation standpoint. But I think that procurement is chronically understaffed, under-resourced, and burdened with these really time-consuming tasks. So the opportunity with AI to build it into your workflows and the agents to do these types of reviews is so massive to unlock more strategic, more proactive time that you can use.
Yeah, it was funny. I was at a conference a few weeks ago and we're at a round table. I don't know, it's 10 people there. And we went around what's the one role, if you could unlock a head count, what's the one role you would hire for on your team? And it was actually not just an evangelist, but it was hey, we want to bring in and have a dedicated, engineer or something of that nature. I know, and I even know some of those Salesforce, procurement engineer, go dedicated to the team. And I know Salesforce and I think that's the role they're hiring for right now, is to be able to, take that person, put them on site with a customer type of a thing. Very interesting.
So what we did was internally, we put a team together of AI experts within the different departments, engineering, IT, and so on. And this team developed something we call a Spark AI. And they host every 2 or 3 months a call where they teach operational teams how to use the tools. And they give live samples. And so putting in that perspective gives us idea of what to do, how we could use it. Where we're thinking code, I don't know how to code. You don't need to know how to code with an LLM. That's the first concern someone like me would have. And so the most recent development was an email summary. How many emails do we get in procurement? How many are sales pitches?
Stop counting.
So instead of coming back from a vacation and going through all those emails, I have an LLM summary from every day that tells me these are the actionable ones. No spam, whether they're spam or not, it will tell me. And it will tell me anything that was addressed to me that I need to work on. And so I could go back and it keeps the whole history in the document. And so that right there saves so much time.
Yeah.
Are you being called upon? What I heard you say earlier is Coursera is actively promoting AI usage within your company. And we certainly saw and see that to some degree. And the bills that are coming in are big, and we're starting to see, oh my gosh, our annual, budget was eaten up in 4 or 5 months, whatever the case may be. Are you being pulled on to start to help manage those AI costs?
So we've changed a little bit our structure. We had application owners that work with the budget owners to maintain those budgets. But tokens are expensive, and you have engineers that are developing things for your company. They're going to consume those tokens faster than most. So what I'm seeing from the LLMs is, in some cases, they're changing their plan structure, where you're paying a per seat plus token. So different companies are changing their structure on their contracts to be a little bit more flexible. So there's not so many orders forms every time you need to add licenses for additional users. But it still remains an issue. It is something that has to be worked through the orgs and the owners of those cost centers for them to set the parameters of, okay, if someone is going to be coding, how much do I want to allocate on that spend? And so if I commit to that spend, the question in my contract is, do I lose it if I don't use it? Or will it sit there and it's pool? So those are the different variables that you will have with the different LLMs. But what I keep seeing from different technologies, solutions that the teams use, regardless of LLMs, is at the end of the day, spend control is an issue.
Yep.
It has always been an issue for procurement and for the cost center owners, and of course for finance. But trying to manage it and adding additional tools to control that spend is very important.
I think we see it all the time. OpenAI, Anthropic, they are, as much as they love what seems like runaway AI costs, they also know it's unsustainable from a business standpoint. And you see the backlash from some of the companies that have run through their budgets, the $500 million spent on a month on AI spend, the kind of popular headlines. And so they're instituting more controls on a per person basis in terms of what amount of spend or, consumption can you actually take on a month by month, or monthly. So we're both seeing the better embedding of controls in the systems. And, one thing we're particularly focused on is the measurement and trackability of that spend so that you can have a very crystal clear perspective on where am I at in terms of what I thought I was going to be paying, in terms of what my commit looked like. Because this is just the transition and evolution of the world towards consumption-based, token-based pricing is we're in it. And it creates an entirely different paradigm for how spend controls and cost management has to be
significant, especially if you're in Q2 or Q1 and you already went through your budget. You had unplanned projects that all of a sudden are priority, and development is essential for the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm curious, have you seen any policy changes internally around the types of things that people can buy on the IT side? I was talking to a customer who not only did they say no net new software purchases because they said we want to see what we can build on our own internally. They also said no net new AI purchases of no AI native tools, because like you described with what you could do in whatever agent or LM you're building in, those things are now possible to do natively in those systems. So I'm curious if Coursera has shifted its posture around what the team is permitted to buy and not permitted to buy.
So in the 4 years, yes, we have shifted significantly. As I came in, I was the first procurement person. There was no guardrails. Everyone could just onboard a vendor and buy. And so we set guardrails around it. And then we tried to do some consolidation because there were some redundant apps in the same verticals. And sometimes maybe a different team, but same solution, right? One was better than the other. Functions were a little bit different. People had a preference, and then it took some convincing by senior management to connect everyone together and say, this is the tool we're going with, right? So we went some years back, we went through some of that consolidation. Right now, we're of course consolidating identical contracts, right? Because of the merger. There's always new restrictions. There has to be. If you don't set limits, like, for example, tokens, you would have to be micromanaging teams to see that they're truly using it for the intended purpose of work and not for personal use, correct? So you could have people, really rack up and build very, very fast with those type of consumption-based contracts.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
no, and I'm sorry. And so if you have extra budget, great, you could add more to it. But when you run out of that budget, then it becomes an issue because you're trying to maintain certain spend controls for finance and the corporation or stakeholders or investors, right? And so it's very important to try to stay on track around those. And that's something that usually stakeholders in general do not concern themselves. They don't even know what the budget is allocated. We don't want them to know what the budget is allocated regardless. But at the end of the day, it's that sensitivity of, yes, this is great. You're developing a product, but at what cost? Right. And so it and those tokens add up.
I know we got to wrap up here, but I want to kind of close with this because you both talked about like measuring, getting the visibility, et cetera. And Justin, I would love to hear, what you're seeing at Coursera, but then Justin, as you're talking to customers, how does that evolve from measuring and calculating that data to then helping the customers determine if the utilization is worth it, if the ROI is there? Because those are some of the other popular headlines that we're seeing. Hey, the time savings are there. But what do you do with those time savings? You get more time to walk your dog or whatever the case may be. So how are we seeing that evolution? Because I think that could be a big value driver for procurement.
I mean, one of the things I was curious about is like, does the ROI case or the business case for a stakeholder around buying something new, is the standard of what is required as part of that business case changed and shifted? Because I've seen in some of our customers where like the standard around what it takes to now buy something new with an ROI justification, even in the last couple of months, has shifted because.
And now it's ROIQ. Right?
Well, yeah, right. Because before it was like, it's an AI thing. Like you told me to go buy AI stuff to test it.
So the justification was just, it's AI,
right.
but non-AI was other stuff.
Right. Yeah. And now it's like, even with the AI stuff, it's like, okay, well, what's the ROI? How are you expecting to see, growth in revenue, efficiency gains, and being able to quantify that much more clearly? And we're seeing those questions being asked. I don't know if you're seeing like
what we implemented when I started, and I was told about this before I was hired as I was going through the process, was that we wanted a review committee. And that review committee was set within the first year. I shared this before one of the other conferences I went to. And it was very interesting because people looked at me very strangely because they thought about it and other people couldn't figure out how to do this. And so none of us had an experience in this area. And we connected finance, legal, senior stakeholders, IT, and procurement to identify how this will work for us. Mm-hmm. And so we came up with a review meeting every week, an intake, present your business case. Do you have a budget? Who's your stakeholder? And what is the purpose of this app? What is your intent of use? What is it going to connect to? Mm-hmm. Data, privacy, EU, and all this other very important factors around InfoSec that needed to be addressed. Single sign-on, elementary, but yes. And so we implemented it. And at first, it just grew so big. Yeah. There were so many people in this process. We streamlined it. And now we have a very stream process where a key person that is very knowledgeable reviews it and pulls in the different teams when they need further review to identify whether this is an app that we should consider or if it needs further review. And that's the process that we implemented at Coursera, which it has worked awesome. Yeah. A lot of stakeholders, they know now this is the process. You want to do a proof of concept? You have to do this first. Do you look at the stack to see if we have a comparable product? You didn't find one there? Okay, you need to submit this paperwork. We go through the NDA, talking to the vendor, doing the POC. You do your testing for however long. No real data, please. And then if you decide to buy from among the vendors that you evaluated, then we work through that and follow through on the purchasing process. So that has made it different for us. I have never seen that model before.
Yeah, it sounds like a good system of controls in place to make sure, you got the right people involved and asking the right questions. I think that, one of the things that I'm seeing with a lot of the heavy AI consumption is these tokens are being deployed against different use cases, whether it's an internal build or something externally. And I think one of the things that I'm interested in seeing is how those tokens are going to ultimately be able to get mapped to the actual like output and delivery of what that kind of body of work was tied to, right? You have a engineer in Claude Code, they're doing tokens, they're using their tokens to build something as part of this feature. There will be connectivity at some point when it says like this build and these tokens led to this feature that leads to this, uplift and everything else in revenue or conversion rate or whatever. So I think that we're in the very, very early innings of being able to measure those things, but I know that there's lots of smart people trying to figure out how can we trace all the way from the build and when the tokens are being used and how they're being deployed out to the output around what the thing that we're trying to actually see happen for our business. It's just hard to do. And the state of the LLMs and the kind of foundational models don't make it easy, but it will get easier over time.
All right. Well, we're out of time, but thank you so much, Issa, for joining. It'll be a fun next couple of days. And we're going to kick things off with a happy hour here. So,
All right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.